Ladies and gentlemen, on this YouTube channel, I've got a playlist known as How to Lose at Chess. We usually feature games of sub 1,000 ELO players where we laugh at the blunders, but also we have a good time and we can learn a thing or two. Well, today, I got inspired when a member of my Discord posted a screenshot of their game review where they blundered a lot of times in a row. And I decided to ask for volunteers to submit games where they blundered many times in a row. And in this game, there were almost 20 blunders in a row, and I look forward to sharing the game with you. Now, the first plot twist that I have for you is the fact that this game is played between a 1400 and a 1300. Their names have been shortened, and obviously I will hide their identities until the very end. But we have Italy versus the Netherlands. It could almost be a World Cup football matchup. Let's begin. E4. All right, fantastic stuff, and black responds with the Scandinavian defense. That's not a blunder, that's fine. E takes d5, and knight to f6. So this is really interesting. Knight to f6 after e takes d5 is known as the, it's an invitation to play a Portuguese gambit or an Icelandic gambit. Black might be a proud owner of a Gotham Gambits course with the black pieces. The link is in the description, available now. c4. Now, when white tries to hang on to this pawn, black now plays e6. This is really the point, to get a position like this, where you are 2 pieces ahead in development, and the center is kind of up for grabs. Like, this pawn doesn't actually fight for any useful squares. Black then plays knight c6, bishop c5, and really clamps down on this. And actually, the very natural move d4 is a pure mistake. It allows black to give a check, to then line up an attack over here. It's actually a very natural move, but it's just not a very good move. Now, white does not wait very long to start doing bad things. White plays b3, which is a horrible move. I don't actually understand what b3 is doing at all. b3 would make you think that white is going to play the move bishop to b2. White never plays that move. White might have been thinking they're defending c4. I don't know how on earth a 1400 just forgets about the absolute basics of the game. You need to develop knights. I don't know what b3 does. This is almost losing because after bishop to c5, queen to d4 is already threatening mate and a rook. I mean, black is almost winning. But black plays bishop to b4, and the advantage kind of goes back up to white's side. Both of those moves are inaccuracies. They're not actually considered blunders. Knight to f3 and queen to e7, and we see the point. Queen to e7 is actually a decent idea, lining up a threat over here. The problem is it's parried very easily by very calm development, bishop to e2, and you see black's last 2 moves are just kind of empty. Like the bishop on b4 is just going to get kicked back with a3. In general, you do not want to put your bishops on squares where the enemy can attack them easily with pawns and win time of development. That's why going to c5 would have been better, because d4 was impossible. d4 is still impossible, but it will be possible in a moment. Now, black plays the move knight to c6. We have castles and long castles. All right, we're ready for battle. This is a bit of a higher level game than we're used to in this series, but white is up a pawn, and this bishop is going to be very useful for white, because white is going to launch an initiative on this side of the board. a3 is a very good move. That's exactly what you should play in this position. So like I said, in this game, we're not going to be witnessing complete chaos and catastrophe, but we are going to be witnessing potentially 20 really bad moves in a row. Almost 20 bad moves in a row. So black retreats back to d6, and white continues on with b4. Now, b4 is an inaccuracy. It's not a bad move. It's much better now you have to play this. Like, your bishop has to fight on the diagonal, because you're also negating the movement of your opponent's pieces. And then, and only then, should you be marching forward with your pawns. The problem is when you play b4, black now can anticipate the move b5 and play what's known as a prophylactic move, which is just jumping into the middle right away to e5. At that point, when you take and do something like this, you're already in some serious trouble, because black has 4 pieces out. 5, if you count this rook. White has pawns. So knight e5 is not a very good situation for white. And if you play c5 thinking you've trapped this bishop, there's check. So then when you take back, this bishop now goes to e5, and you're gonna lose like a piece here. It's very bad. Knight c3, take, and this. So the open lines are really nice for black. But we have b4, and let the fun begin, because this evaluation bar is about to go on a roller coaster. Might die. All right, black, for whatever reason at this point, plays queen d7. Now it is a completely winning position for white, because queen d7 accomplishes negative things. It does worse than nothing. Because now you can play d4, and I mean, I don't actually know how you're stopping, like, just white completely storming you with their pawns. I don't know what black's next move was going to be. I have honestly no idea. Of course, d4 does not happen. Now white decides, oh, well, I was starting a pawn attack, but now let me just play normal developing moves. Okay, so that's an inaccuracy. That's not a total blunder, but knight back to c3. Okay, now black is like, okay, I don't actually know why I moved the queen out of the way. Let me play knight to e5. Once again, blundering a borderline loss, but it's very difficult to see why exactly this is losing, so this one I'll let slide. c5 now. And you see, remember earlier I told you about bishop e5 attacking the rook? Now that actually has no threat, because white can play this, and that's a real problem. Anytime you can kind of break through like this with a pawn, bc6, who's going to help the bishop? The queen. And then you're threatening to take, and then you're threatening mate. So it can get very bad very fast. Obviously, this is how to lose at chess. That doesn't happen at all. Okay, so white at this point has been preparing all the makings of an attack. b4, c4, etc., etc. So what do you do when you want to go create an attack on your opponent? Of course, you trade queens. That totally makes sense, right? You just completely trade the queens. Queen takes a4. Now black can take on f3. Black can take on c4. And now black is winning. Now black is winning. I mean, white just pushed out a bunch of soldiers and left them to die. Sort of like some governments, but we're not going to get into that right now. Queen to a4. Now, black at this point just moved this knight, right? So you think only 500 level players suffer from this type of tunnel vision? Like, okay, I just moved my knight, so now, since I just moved my knight, I have to move my knight again. Because for some reason, that's how the laws of chess work, right? I have to move my knight again. So completely disregarding this, and then this, and completely disregarding the fact that this queen can actually take on a7 and then mate you, black plays knight takes c4 and loses the game again. Now black is completely lost. Why? Because queen takes a7. And there's also an even stronger engine move, which is the move b5, which is just absolutely savage, attacking the knight with the queen first. And then if the knight tries to go back to where it came from, now you're also restricting this square from any piece. Queen, pawn, knight, queen a7. It's like mate in a move. You play c6 to try to cover up. I go check, bishop b8, and boom. And you can't take me. Like, it's over. I mean, the game is over after knight takes c4. However, now white takes a page out of black's book and is like, well, I just moved my queen. So naturally, since I see this, I have to do it. That's just how it works. I mean, queen a7 makes 10,000 times more sense, but let's trade queens. I don't think white actually realizes that, like, that's not... Yeah, anyway. Okay, rook takes d7. Okay, that's not a blunder. And now white has a bunch of normal moves. Go trade knight for bishop. You know, go get the bishop pair, develop a rook. You can even take on c4. You have my blessing. Instead, white plays knight to d4, immediately losing the game again. Why? Because black just easily plays bishop takes h2 here, and rook takes knight. Now, for anybody watching below the rating of 1,000, you might not think that this is that significant of a blunder. It is. It's not a very easy thing. It's not a, like, sorry. It's not a very hard thing to I mean, just bishop takes pawn, right? Now, of course, black doesn't play that. Black, you know what black saw? Black saw knight takes bishop, bishop takes knight. That's what, so black played knight b6. You know, I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. Now, at this point, white should continue with this plan. That plan makes sense, because then you have two bishops, which is just always slightly better, and then you can finish your development and go after this pawn. You're just comfortable advantage. Now, obviously, after knight d4, you would think that a 1400 rated player takes. No, they for some reason play this move, and now it's even worse, my friends, because it's not just bishop takes h2 and rook takes d4, it's the fact that you have two knights standing like the peppers in between the meat on a shish kebab, okay? And bishop to e5, boom, boom, boom. How do you guard everybody? You don't. You lose. Game over. Game is absolutely over. Bishop e5, over. Boom, boom, everything falls apart. No. Black there now goes, you know, I haven't moved my rook. Okay, I think it's time to do that. I mean, geez Louise, folks. It's not hard to see bishop takes h2 or bishop to e5. It really isn't. Those are the most forcing moves in the position. Forcing moves, checks, captures, attacks. But okay, rook e8. Now, bishop to e3. Once again, blundering the move bishop to e5, and now it's played. Oh, this is a different story. Okay, now, what is white going to do? White has to defend the knight, so white plays knight to b5. Now, this is attacking this, but it's also serving the purpose of defending this knight. Now, black has one best move in this position, sidestepping the attack on this bishop and playing bishop g4. admittedly, that is the hardest move of this entire game. To set up an exchange, in the meantime, threatening to mobilize your knight and dealing with the paralysis of these horses. Anytime you have two knights like this that are desperately defending a position, neither one of which can move because something else will die, you have to find a way to attack them. A move like a6, a move like c6. But to set that up, you have to get your own bishop out of the way. This is us being actually instructional, learning something. But black goes, oh, I gotta attack the knight right now. Here's me attacking the knight right now. And now black is losing. Black is losing in the most obscene of ways. Always look for checks. Look at this. Knight to a7. So black blunders, knight a7 check. Why is this good? Because then you sacrifice the knight. That is so dirty. It doesn't matter where the king goes. Somehow, you've completely warped around the defenses, because knights are crazy. They could jump over the castle and out. And now you would just win the bishop and the pawn. You have two bishops and the king's positioning is completely shattered. But both players absolutely blunder. And instead we have knight takes e6. And now white has a hanging knight, a second hanging knight, and a hanging rook. Which one should you take? You gotta take the one that gives you the best future prospects. If you take on a1 first, this knight can escape, probably in the way of taking on c7, or this takes on c7, or this takes on g7. You gotta play rook e6. Because then you cannot prevent the loss of further material. d4, you can move your bishop someplace. Like, there's this even crazy, look at this, bishop f4. And then if take, and the knight is hanging, and then maybe this is hanging. I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but obviously we have bishop takes a1. Okay, fantastic. Now white needs to play knight b takes c7. Get the knight out of the way, attack the rook. No, white follows the philosophy of, oh, he took my rook, now I have to abandon two horses to die. Now, which of these two things do you take? Do you take on b5 and allow this knight to roam free, or do you take on e6? Of course you take on e6, very good. Okay, the dust has settled, and both players are done blundering. So now we have a middle game to play. All right, and since this is how to lose, but also potentially win at chess, hopefully we continue to see chaos. Maybe not, all right? We have knight to d4, attacking the rook in the middle of the board. Now, very easy tactical sequence here. Rook takes knight, bishop takes, rook takes bishop. 9 times out of 10, a knight and a bishop are better than a rook, and also, this is a very easy endgame to convert. You just have an extra piece. White only has rook and bishop. Obviously, that doesn't happen. Rook e7. Now, white can play knight to f5, attacking the rook and the pawn. White doesn't do that whatsoever. Once again, rook takes d4 is possible, but you have to be a little bit careful because at the end, there is this. So, knight fd5. I love this move. Knight to f5 attacks the rook. The rook moves. Now we have knight takes g7 and potential possibilities of this. We have knight takes e3, f takes e3. Do not take on e3. There is bishop to g4. That's not hard to see. White only has 3 pieces remaining. Oh god. Oh god. Bishop to g4. Bishop to g4. Instead of that, white, for whatever reason, plays king to f2. Activating the king. Now, black has to go back to e5. Why? Set a box for the knight. And also f5 in the future. All right, rook e7. Now bishop g4 is a clean winning of an exchange. Nay, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Rook to e6. Oh my gosh. Absolutely zero respect. Just go bishop g4 for the love of God. There it is. Now, it's up to black to find a nice move. Rook f6 is a beautiful move, pinning the knight to the king. That's the difference between these players and players that are 1,000 points lower than them. These players can stop bleeding at some point. Now, rook c5. Beautiful move here by black. Absolutely fantastic move. Rook to d5. Trying to trade as many pieces as possible. Takes, knight takes d5, and now you would love to do this, but you can't. There's nothing you can do. You gotta unpin yourself. You gotta move your king. Instead of moving the king, we decide to abandon the knight completely and stop this, and now we're pinned. And now it's gonna be really difficult to stop the bleeding. And black proceeds to clean things up. And this is how to lose at chess. But, all right. I mean, okay, we're going to take every pawn. And now we're going to... What Why did we even let the king... Okay. Mini lesson in and of itself, you don't need to win all of your opponent's pawns. I mean, okay, all right. You don't... Okay. You just cut the king off. Now, look, you don't need to push every single pawn. Just play b3 and promote. Okay, all right. You don't... You're rubbing it in at this point. Don't stalemate. Now, at this point, don't play c2. And don't play a2. Both of those moves are a stalemate. You can move your rook to any one of these squares and down, and it's mate. The game is over. No. You gotta make a queen. All right, you gotta make a queen. You gotta make 2 queens. 2 queens. You couldn't have done it unless you were up 23 points at the end to get the win. Now, let this serve as an example, ladies and gentlemen, that even 13 and 1400 rated players play chess the way unhealthy and unfit 50-year-old heavyweight boxers would fight in a ring. I mean, you take this back to the 10th move of the game and just absolute pandemonium. The eval bar fighting more than relatives at a Thanksgiving dinner with opposing political views. But at the end of the day, it's the last person to make a mistake who loses. And even though it took black about 30 moves to convert a position with an extra rook and multiple pawns that ultimately resulted in the making 2 queens completely unnecessarily, black got the job done. And that is why this episode of How to Lose at Chess comes with a little bit of an asterisk after it. And I figured we would make it because tomorrow is the start of the World Chess Championship. So you get to see a little bit of chaos before you see some of the highest quality chess that you have probably ever seen in your life. And if you're watching this way beyond the World Chess Championship, well, I'm glad the algorithm recommended my content to you. Till tomorrow, all folks in current events. And if you're watching this once again from the future, I love you. Welcome to my channel. And I will see you in the next video. Get out of here.